Now, ladies and gentlemen, when I tell you, and I realize if you are standing up, you should sit down right now, this is going to be shocking to you. But if I tell all of you that the media in South Africa, and specifically News24, is corrupt and full of nonsense, I know most of you will go, what is he talking about? News24, the most trusted news organization in South Africa? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I kid you not. So News24, actually, we should back up a little bit and we should talk about Trump first. Right, so Trump, a few days ago, not just Trump, but the White House, and specifically the Department of Health for the United States, came out and rendered a rather chilling warning to pregnant women in America, but probably worldwide, because when America speaks, the world often listens, although these days not so much, where they said that pregnant women should avoid the use of Tylenol, or in South Africa it's known as paracetamol, as a result of new evidence that appeared to link one of the active ingredients in paracetamol or Tylenol to autism in children. Now, it should be mentioned right off the bat that a lot of medical studies, specifically when we're trying to look at what, taking a certain drug, what effects that might have on the person or on the baby, if these are not effects that's immediately visible, or at least visible within a year or two, generally speaking, we're not going to be able to find the link. The reason for it is most medical studies don't run for 5, 6, 7 years. And I know of people who have children that have autism where the autism really only started to display at 3, 4, 5 years of age. So if they're looking at a mother while pregnant, and trying to keep track, they're probably not going to look for that long. That doesn't mean that there aren't studies that look at it. But the problem, of course, is that in our modern era, with all of the nonsense that is in our drugs, that is in our food, if you look at the pharmaceutical industry, and before anyone here, and look, guys, my dad's a doctor. I'm not against the pharmaceutical industry. When I get sick, I take antibiotics. When I get a headache, I take Panado, right? I have no problem with drugs in general. Well, medical drugs. I have a problem with normal drugs just fine. But or the more recreational drugs I have a problem with, but medical drugs I'm okay with. The problem is that all of these pharmaceutical companies are some of the richest and most wealthy companies in the world. They're not run by doctors who actually want to do good. They have no interest in actually helping people. They're interested in making money. I have a friend who works for a pharmaceutical company in the UK who said literally as much to me when I asked them, let's say, because I don't want to give too much away, but when I asked them, would we ever have a cure for something like the common cold? Like, how hard can it be to cure that? I was told in no uncertain terms, never. It will never happen. Because any research that could potentially lead to a cure is immediately stopped. They don't want to cure it. They want to treat it because the money is in the treatment, not in the cure. So that should give you a sense of who the pharmaceutical company is in general, or the pharmaceutical industry is in general. But okay, so News24 then comes out with their own claims. This is Nicole McCain writing for News24, saying paracetamol and pregnancy. SA doctors debunk Trump's claim linking drug to autism. And of course, there's a bunch of South African doctors who come out swinging against the American president, saying, in agreement with position statements from several international bodies, we confirm that there is no evidence that taking paracetamol in pregnancy at recommended therapeutic doses causes autism in children. That's not true. Because if you go down to the WHO and their statement, it says extensive research has been undertaken over the past decade, including large-scale studies looking into links between, I'm not going to try to pronounce that, use during pregnancy and autism. That, by the way, is the active ingredient in paracetamol. At this time, no consistent association has been established. That does not mean that there is no link. That simply means that they have not been able to find a consistent link. In other words, it might cause autism in some kids. So when some mothers take Tylenol or paracetamol, their children might be born with autism, and others it may not. So there's no way for them to actually know. The doctors go on to say that this is just complete nonsense. And then you have Juliet Carter, for example, who literally is the National Director of Autism for South Africa, that says the following: medical guidance continues to confirm that paracetamol is the safest pain relief option during pregnancy. This is News24. This is their fact-check safe articles coming out. They, of course, were the ones who just last week told us that there is no replacement for the corrupt corporate media in South Africa, because they're the only ones that genuinely care about people, care about truth, and they're the ones who push the truth. So, if you just read this article, you would know that 7 South African nonprofit organizations and a whole host of medical organizations all debunked it. News24 covered it. Tylenol is safe. And if you're pregnant, you can use it. Except Tylenol, the company themselves, we actually don't recommend using any of our products while pregnant. Thank you for taking the time to voice your concerns. This is from 2017. So it's not as if this only came out after the article. It's not as if this is just some wild claim. This is Tylenol themselves saying, please don't use our products when you're pregnant, including Tylenol, because it's a drug and they're not sure if it's actually 100% safe. In fact, it took me all of 5 minutes to find 4 studies. This is just 4. There's hundreds of them, by the way, that actually show that acetaminophen, maybe that's the correct pronunciation, the active component of Tylenol, may be linked to a number of issues, such as stillbirths, the problems with autism, as we've said. Now, again, right, and these are all of the studies. You can read through them. All of them find at least weak links to autism. But as is so often the case, right, these things aren't necessarily, you can't view these things in a bubble. The problem is, and I think most of us can agree to this, our food supply, our current, the environment that we live in is not conducive to normal human life. We have a massive problem with obesity. Case in point, right? And I'm not blaming anyone for this. This is just me opening my gullet and not closing it, right? So I'm not blaming anyone else. I take full responsibility for my weight. But we have a massive problem. If you go back 50 years, almost no one was overweight. Today, more than half of Americans are obese or close to obese. Worldwide, it's becoming a massive problem. We have more people with autism. And by the way, the studies or the people that claim that it's only because we are better at detecting it, that's nonsense. Because even when normalized for detection, the rates of autism is much higher. So the point is, something is happening. And it might not be just one thing. It might be multiple things that we're taking and using in way too high doses. So it might be that, yes, acetaminophen isn't on its own problematic, but you couple that with a couple of other things that say present in our food, and suddenly you have a little cocktail that you've made for yourself that will screw up your children. I've been vaccinated, right? Not against COVID, not that, I'm not stupid, but I've been vaccinated as a child, and that's perfectly fine. The point is, there is something going on. There's something going wrong, and anyone that wants to pretend that there isn't is merely blind. And News24 should be ashamed of themselves for pushing this article without at least, this is what the media is supposed to do. You're supposed to at least present both sides of the argument, not just play, sort of your favorite TDS album and write your little article. There's not a single word in this entire article about these studies here. Nothing. News24, you should be ashamed of yourselves. I want to thank the YouTube members of this channel as well as the patrons. To become a member, just hit the button right below this video. Your support is always incredibly appreciated. Hit like if you like, dislike if you didn't, and I'll see all of you in the next one. Peace.